Hello world and welcome to another video. Come for the education, but please stay for the motivation. Today's video is a continuation of our series on cracking the coding interview, and today we're solving a problem called sum list. Again, feel free to pause the video just to read through what this problem is asking for, but I find the examples a lot more descriptive. This happens to also be a LeetCode problem, to be more specific, LeetCode number 2. Again, feel free to pause the video to make sure they're the same problem, but trust me, I already verified it for you guys because I love you guys. Back to the problem and how we intend on solving this problem. Given a linked list 259, where 259 is just reversed number of 952, and then the second is 58. Again, this is just reversed for 85. Given these two, we want to add them up. So to add this up, first 2 plus 5 is obviously 7. Then next we're going to add 5 plus 8, which is 13. So here's the first edge case. We're going to write down 3 but carry a 1 here. So now with this carry, we're going to add carry 1 plus 9, which is 10. So we're going to put down 0 and carry 1. And finally, we're just going to add this 1 carry to 0 and 0. He's just going to come down. So this is our answer. Okay, so this is technically what we're supposed to return, but reversed, you see, 7301. Without further ado, let's go ahead and solve this code. But I think the best way of solving this is to show you guys the solution first and then walk through it. But quick pause, today's motivation is from Steve Jobs, and I quote, "I think this is the start of something really big. Sometimes that first step is the hardest one, and we've just taken it." Hey guys, if you're watching this video, you're probably taking a first step towards something bigger. Maybe you're trying to interview for a better job position or switch careers or whatever the case is. It is, if you're just trying to learn this, you're taking a step towards something bigger. And I want to assure you guys, as long as you guys stick to what you're doing, stick to the plan and never ever give up, trust me, you are gonna get there. Back to the problem. So this piece of code right here to the right is the actual solution to this problem. However, it's only about 80% complete. We're gonna walk through it using this example to the left and actually complete it. First, we're gonna define our function, def sum list or whatever you wanna call it, and we're gonna pass it the head of the two lists we were given. In this case, we're given L1, which is the top list, and L2, which is the bottom list right here. So the head of this first list is L1, and the head of the second list is L2. So now, the first thing we're gonna do is create a dummy node. That's what this line says. Create a dummy node and give him a value of 0. Then the next line of code initializes a pointer called current and sets him to the dummy node. So what that does in the actual linked list is creates a current pointer and points him to our dummy node, which is this node we just created called dummy. So now we're done with the first two lines. The next line, we're creating a variable called carry. I'm gonna go ahead and write this variable up here, and this is to take care of the cases where we have a carry. And first, we're initializing him to 0. So in the first instance, he has a value of 0. Now we go into our while loop. We're saying while L1 and L2 have a value. So in this case, while L1 and L2 is not none, obviously L1 points to this first head of list 1, L2 points to the head of list 2. So we're gonna go in and say v1 equals L1.val. So v1 is just the value of L1, which in this case happens to be 2. Similarly, v2 happens to be 5. And then we're gonna go on to our calculation. So val is gonna be equal to v1 plus v2 plus carry. So all we're doing here is just adding these three, carry, v1 and v2. So in this case, it's gonna be equal to v1 is 2 plus 5v2 plus 0 carry. So this is 7. Then we're going to calculate our carry for the next iteration of the loop. So our carry for the next iteration is just val, which is 7, divided by 10. So 7 divided by 10 is obviously 0 because we're doing an integer division. That's what the double slashes is for. So this is our carry for the next iteration. So I'm just going to go ahead and write him here ahead of the next iteration. So carry is 0. We're going to go on and say value equals value, which is still 7. We calculated up here. Modulus 10. I'm pretty sure if you're studying for LeetCode, you know what the modulus operator does, but just in case you don't know, here's a refresher. It gives you the remainder. So once you divide 7 by 10, the remainder is going to be 7. So now the next line of code says create a new node with the value of val, in this case 7, and assign him to current.next. So what we're just simply going to do is create that new node. He's going to have the value of val, which in this case was 7, and we're going to assign him to current. Current is currently here, .next. So current.next is just this next pointer. So then we're going to go on and move all our pointers. We're going to move current to current.next. So current is here. Current is going to move to current. L2.next. The same thing we're going to do for L1 and L2. They are both going to move forward to L1.next and L2.next respectively. So this is what it looks like. L1 is going to be right here and L2 is going to move forward by 1. So at this point, we're at the end of our while loop. So we're going to go back up to iterate. We're going to check L1 or L2 is either of them defined. In this case, they're both defined. They both have values 5 and 8 respectively. So we're going to go into the loop. I'm going to go ahead and wipe off these guys from the previous solution because we're going to calculate all of them again. So now first, what is V1? V1 is just L1.value, which in this case is 5. Similarly, V2, L2.value, in this case is 8. So this means val is just V1 plus V2 plus carry, which in this case V1 is 5 plus 8 plus our carry, which is right here, is 0. So this happens to be 13. So now let's calculate our carry for the next iteration. Our carry for the next iteration is just value, which is 13 divided by 10. 13 divided by 10 is obviously 1. We're going to go ahead and write him ahead of the next iteration. Then we're going to go next and calculate our value. Value is just value, which is 13 modulus 10. When you divide 10 by 13, your remainder is going to be 3. So now with this remainder val, which is 3, we're going to calculate a new node. We're going to create a new node, okay? Give him the value of 3 and assign current.next to him. So this is what it's going to look like. And just like we did in the previous stage, now we're going to move all 3 pointers. We're going to move current to current.next, L1 to L1.next, and L2 to L2.next. But now you see what has happened to L2. L2 is now pointing to nothing, right? Let's just go ahead and write none out here. So now we're going to go back to the top of the while loop and check, hey, is L1 or L2 defined? In this case, L2 is not defined because it's pointing to none, but L1 still is. And since we used an OR, this loop is going to execute. If we use an AND, it's not going to execute, it's going to terminate. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe the numbers from the previous iteration because we're going to calculate a new set of numbers. So now V1 is just L1.value. So similarly, V2 in this case, L2.value, but L2 is just none. He's not a node. He doesn't have a dot value property. So this is going to cause our code to break. It's going to cause an error. So we're going to have to fix it somehow. Whenever we see something that doesn't have a value or we see a none, we make him 0. And here's how we're going to do. We're going to have an if statement. We're going to say something like if and else. So V2 is going to be L2.value if there is an L2. But in the case where there's no L2, is going to be a 0. For this example, L2 happened to be the shorter list, but what if L1 is the shorter list? We're also going to have to add this check to L1 too, just to be safe. So now V1 is just going to be 9 because he has a value, and V2 is going to be 0 thanks to this if else statement we just added. Now we're going to do the calculation. Value is just going to be 9 plus 0. Again, remember our carry from our previous iteration is 1. So all we're doing is adding 1 plus 9 plus 0. So this happens to be 10. So now, what is our carry for the next iteration? It's just 10 divided by 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1. So I'm going to go ahead and write in. So our carry for the next iteration is going to be 1. So now, what is our value? Our value is just 10 modulus 10. Once you divide 10 with 10, the remainder is 0. So now we're going to create a new node, assign him to current.next with a value of 0. Our new node will be right here. Is going to have a value of 0 and current.next is going to point to it. This point we're going to move all our pointers. First, let's move current. Similarly, L1 is going to move forward to L1.next. So as you can see, once L1 moves forward, now he points to none just like L2 did. So now let's try to move L2. Once we try to move L2, it's going to break because none is the last element in this list, right? He can't move to anything else. So this is going to cause our code to error out, and we have to add a check to fix it. L2, just kind of like we did earlier, else none. Similarly, so only move L1 if there's an L1 to move to. Sorry, L1, else none. Now we're almost done with this code, but anyways, let's go ahead and iterate forward. So we go back up to the while loop, but now while L1 is none, L2 is none. This loop will break, but we don't want it to break, right? Because we only have 0, 7, 3, 0. But our answer based on the calculation, there should be a 1. There's a 1 we're missing, we have to add. So in this case, this is our third edge case. We're going to add a third statement that says or carry. If any of these 3 is defined, we're going to keep iterating. In this case, our carry happens to be 1, as you can see right here. So we're going to keep iterating. So we're going to go back in here. I'm going to wipe out these values because we're going to recalculate all of them. And now V1 is just nothing, right? Because L1 points to nothing. So he's 0. What is V2? V2 also happens to be 0. So this is val is 0 plus carry. Our carry is 1. Once you add this, it's just 1, okay? So carry is just going to be val, which is 1 divided by 10. So carry is going to be 0. So carry for the next iteration is 0. I'm just going to go ahead and write it. Val is going to be val modulus 10. So if you divide 1 by 10, the remainder is 1. So again, like we did, we're going to create a node with the value of 1. And now we're going to assign current.next to them. And as always, we're going to move our pointers if we can, right? So we can move current, so current is just going to move to current.next. Okay, we're going to try to move L1 and L2, but they're both pointing to none, so we can't move them, so we're not going to do anything. So last, we're going to return. But what do we want to return? I know here it says to return dummy, but no, dummy points to 0, so we don't want to return 07301. What we want to return is 7301 because we want to get rid of the 0. And how we do that is by returning dummy.next. So now this code is fully correct. Here I've been able to create the node class, okay, which is the building block of our linked list. I've been able to create our linked list class, create the append method, which is how we add to our linked list or build our linked list, the display method, which is how we visualize or see our linked list. And here is the actual method that does the actual algorithm. Again, keep in mind that I commented out this return dummy.next because I want to print him so we can visualize it. And then this is the first linked list I created, like the example we have. This is 259, 259, and the next one is 5858. And then I'm displaying both linked lists, linked list 1 and linked list 2, which is this top and this bottom. And then I'm calling our function, and you can see this is the correct value. Similarly, on LeetCode, this is the exact same solution, but in this case, I'm returning dummy.next. So let's go ahead and submit this and see how we do. Boom, it passed. So that's it for the video, guys. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.